filthy Neanderthal.
Apocalypse is one of the most dangerous villains that X-Men has had to face over the years. He's returned time and time again, and never once was this man alone. He would always be accompanied by his 4 horsemen. Now, what happens when your friend ends up becoming one of the horsemen? Would you kill him, or would you try to bring him back? This is the dilemma that the X-Men had to face when Logan ended up in this position. In today's video, we'll break down this incident, so get cozy and let's get to it. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. It's a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Horsemen of Apocalypse, the Dark Members. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the why and how, let me first tell you about the 4 Horsemen and why it was such a big deal when Logan joined the Deadly Quartet. The 4 Horsemen are effectively the strike force that the mutant tyrant always used to make sure he could intimidate his newest conquerors. These 4 Horsemen followed their leader's philosophy, which is survival of the fittest. With ominous monikers and killer outfits, these 4 Horsemen struck terror into the hearts of people wherever they went. The 4 Horsemen we usually have are known as pestilence, war, famine, and death. Over the centuries that Apocalypse has dominated the galaxies, he's recruited many people to take on the mantles of these horsemen, which were originally given to his children, stranded in Amenth. These are cold-blooded killers who would not hesitate to butcher you at just one command from their master. They're fiercely loyal, and they would give up their lives to protect their master. Apocalypse also gives them handy-dandy power-ups whenever the situation calls for it, to make sure his horsemen are never caught lacking. So when he started picking outsiders in order to replace the original horsemen, they had to be people who were just as fierce, right? Logan is honestly a perfect choice for it, and Apocalypse knew that. But how did he manage to get Logan on his side? Now that is the right question that we would love to answer. Wolverine becomes Death. Let's give you a bit of a backstory. On the spaceship known as Avalon, Wolverine was entangled in a brutal fight with Magneto. Wolverine knew he had to stop the villain, and as we know, Logan stopped at nothing, so he clawed and slashed his way through Magneto's attacks and somehow managed to cut him down with his claws. Magneto was furious at Logan, and to teach him a lesson, he used the magnetic field of the ship and sucked the adamantium out of his skeleton. This absolutely brutalized Wolverine. The extent of his injuries was tremendous, and for a while, everyone was worried if he would even survive or not. His healing factor was no longer as strong as it used to be, but it had to be working over time to make sure Wolverine was on his feet. Professor X, Heather Hudson, and Beast worked through day and night to figure out how they could help their friend when they found out something crucial. Turns out, Wolverine's mutation had not actually stopped. It was pretty ongoing, actually. But before they could celebrate the fact that their friend would be okay because, hey, his healing factors are a part of his mutation, they realized that this was not the only one that he had. As it turns out, Wolverine is seemingly so animalistic because of his mutations. The only reason that he's not gone full-on rabid on anyone is the healing factor. The adamantium was slowing down his mutations by keeping his healing factors busy, fighting off the heavy metal poisoning that came with it. Now that the adamantium was gone, the floodgates were open, and if they did not find a way to quickly arrest his mutations, Logan would definitely wreak havoc on people pretty soon. Logan was already reeling from the shock that the claws he thought were a gift from the Weapon X program were actually his original bone structure. When he learned all of this regarding his mutation, you can understand why the man decided he would rather stay away from everyone for a while. He clearly needed time to himself. But Logan is a good friend, so when Kitty asks him to go to Muir Island for a visit, he does so without asking. But he definitely did not know about the troubles that awaited him there. When he reached Muir Island, he was attacked by Cyber, an assassin equipped with adamantium skin. Sure, Logan was able to defeat Cyber, but that wasn't the end of his troubles. Right after Cyber, the Professor called upon Logan to rescue the X-Men, who were captured by the Phalanx. So off to Tibet he went. After saving his teammates, Logan really thought he would get the time he needed for himself, but nope. Instead he was kidnapped by Tyler Dayspring, better known as Genesis. Genesis wanted to turn Logan into one of his horsemen, by hook or by crook, but when he learned that Logan no longer had the adamantium, Genesis literally ripped off Cyber's skin to acquire the adamantium for Wolverine's skeleton. However, Wolverine's body was not ready for the process. He rejected it vehemently, and while doing so, Wolverine became feral. He almost went on a killing rampage, but he somehow managed to calm himself down and return to his true self. Realizing that maybe all of this was his sign of not parting his ways with the X-Men, Logan went back to his group, hoping to be at peace. But when you're the perfect candidate for a deadly strike force, how much peace do you truly get? While Logan was with his friends, trying to stop Magneto from getting Genosha on a silver platter, something no one could have imagined had happened. A wrinkle in time opened up, and the X-Men ship came in contact with a training ground of aliens. Not just any aliens, mind you, the Skrulls, the shapeshifters who had been targeting the X-Men and Earth for a long time. The Skrulls used some sort of psychic attack that left everyone on board completely unconscious. They crept aboard the ship and located the mutant they were after. They switched the mutant out with one of their own, who was trained for this purpose, and left them unconscious so as not to raise any suspicions. Turns out, the mutant these Skrulls were after was Wolverine himself. They were asked by their master to go and get Wolverine. And who, you wonder, is this master? Why, it's Apocalypse himself. Given Wolverine's mysterious dark past, he was one of the few that Apocalypse thought about as his next Horseman of Death. When Wolverine woke up, he was presented in front of the Master. Wolverine was not quite sure why he was there, though. But before he could beat the answers out of Sabanur, an old foe showed up. It was Sabretooth. Sabretooth jumped onto Wolverine and started clawing at him. Sabretooth kept an upper hand in the entirety of the fight. As the sounds of Wolverine's bones crunching filled the room, he realized that Sabretooth had received a significant adamantium upgrade since the last time they'd come face to face. Wolverine was not quite sure why they were fighting, but he knew that he was at a disadvantage. He knew that now, more than ever, he needed to keep his head strong and fight smart, because if he didn't, he was sure that Sabretooth would be the one to end him for good. As Wolverine fought, Sabretooth and his big mouth went off to explain the situation. This fight was not about who won or lost or who lived and died. It was about who gets to ride as the Horseman of Death, because Apocalypse was coming for Earth. This meant that if Wolverine didn't defeat Sabretooth, then Sabretooth, the vicious and chaotic monster, would be the one riding as the Horseman of Death. Sabretooth has killed quite a few people in his tenure as a rogue mutant without being the Horseman of Death, so the body count would only increase at an exponential rate if he were to get the position of Horseman of Death. Wolverine had to decide. Should he defeat Sabretooth and take on that position, while knowing very well he might hurt his friends? Or should he get defeated and let Sabretooth be the one to ride with Apocalypse? While this would have been a hard thing for us normies to decide, Wolverine knew what he had to do. Professor X had given him level 9 psionic blockers. He knew that even if Apocalypse were to reprogram his mind, Wolverine would be able to fight it off. He knew if Sabretooth was given this position, he knew that he would ravish the killing and the chaos that his actions would cause without a single worry. So, using his knowledge as an ex-adamantium skeleton owner, Wolverine pierced through Sabretooth's gut, the only weak spot, and defeated him fair and square. Sabanur put both Sabretooth and Wolverine in a machine, and suctioned out the metal from the former and injected it into the latter, giving Wolverine the metal skeleton he was always familiar with. Sabretooth protested, claiming that he was stronger and better at killing, which Logan knew himself, but he had to go through with it because he would rather serve the devil himself than let his old foe walk the earth as one of the horsemen. The procedure was painful and long. It left Wolverine with many scars and even more tormented nights. But Wolverine persevered because he knew what he needed to do. But what he was not expecting was that his memories would be wiped out, effectively making him forget that he had the ability to shake off the program. Once the procedures were done, Wolverine, decked out in a new outfit where only his feral eyes could be seen, was now the Horseman of Death. The first person he was sent after was Hulk. Now, the angry beast had been trying to keep himself away from most people because he no longer wanted to hurt them. But when the Horseman cornered him, Hulk had no option but to retaliate. Sure, Wolverine managed to land some hits, but when your muscles and tendons turn into jelly from getting pummeled into the ground, there's not much that the adamantium skeleton can do to protect you. After putting up a tough fight, Wolverine eventually passed out, and Hulk went away, grumbling about how he smashed the puny little man and didn't want to do it anymore. He showed the puny man what he could do, and that's that. The green beast never noticed when a yellow beam seemingly descended from the heavens and picked up the unconscious Wolverine, bringing him with it. The beam was sent out by Apocalypse to pick up his fallen horseman. Apocalypse claimed that in this world only the fittest survived. Very Darwin of him, if I may add. He went on about how even if Wolverine were to fight Hulk for an eternity, it would take a long time for either of them to get a true victory. But Wolverine did not need to worry anymore, because the Apocalypse will usher in a new era. His era with him, and Hulk would fall just like the others. Now, until this point, the X-Men had no idea that their companion was replaced by someone else. The X-Men were repeatedly attacked by the Horsemen, and much to their shock and horror, Wolverine was killed by Death. The X-Men could not process the death of their beloved compatriot. I mean, he's supposed to have a healing factor. How could he just die? So the X-Men decided to run some tests on their fallen brother, and would you look at that? It was not Wolverine in the first place. It was the Skrull imposter. But now the main question was, if this is the faux Wolverine, then where is the real one? The X-Men had to investigate this, so they decided to infiltrate the Skrull headquarters. But what they found there was not something they could have mentally prepared for. They learned that the Death that they had been fighting for so long was none other than their old friend. So the next time Death attacked, there was some sort of an underlying agenda amongst the X-Men to find out if Death was truly Wolverine. Once that was confirmed, the X-Men had a lot on their plate. They had to figure out what to do with Wolverine and how to get him back as soon as possible. Apocalypse, who had no idea that the X-Men had figured out Logan was Death, sent him out for another mission. This time, Death was sent to capture Mikhail Rasputin, Colossus' brother, but Death was unable to teleport with Mikhail. This gave the X-Men the opportunity to chase Logan into the Morlock tunnels. For those of you who don't know, Morlock tunnels are important for the mutants. They were abandoned tunnels where a lot of abandoned and escaped mutants found refuge. Callisto, a mutant, was their leader. She captured Angel of X-Men and brought him there to turn him into her mate. This was later prevented by the X-Men, and Wolverine was part of that team. Not only that, but Kitty was meant to get married right in this tunnel, which again Wolverine attended. So there were a lot of memories here for our dear heroes. Angel, Kitty, Jubilee, and Nightcrawler went after Logan in the tunnels. On the other hand, Betsy Braddock, aka Psylocke, put on the Cerebro so that she could accompany her teammates in saving Wolverine in her own way. The X-Men planned to reach out to Wolverine and bring up his memories so that he could fight the programming done by Insabanur himself. Now, ever since Logan entered the Morlock tunnels, memories started to come back to him. He wasn't sure why, but he felt like he had been there before. These memories started to disorient him more when Elizabeth finally got her hands on him. She flooded his mind with all the events that had transpired in the Morlock tunnels before, hoping to remind Logan who he was. But Logan was aware of everyone around him, and as Death, he knew that the X-Men were not there to be his friends. So he started attacking them while fighting off the disorientation caused by Psylocke. Kitty tried her best to talk to Logan and urge him to fight from within, but her words were not able to reach Logan's locked-up psyche. Eventually, Logan beat up Kitty and was right about to kill her for good when Jubilee stepped in. Both Kitty and Jubilee have a really good relationship with Logan. Everyone on the team knew that if there were people who would have been able to bring Logan back, it would have been these two, and they were right. Jubilee's words echoed in Logan's mind thanks to Braddock's powers, and he halted his attacks. Deep within his mind, Betsy showed up. She spoke with Wolverine, the real one, telling him how he needed to fight back. Thanks to Betsy's words of encouragement, Wolverine realized that this is how close his real personality would come to the surface. If he didn't fight now, he would have to relinquish the control of his body to Apocalypse's programming. So that's what Wolverine did, snapping out of the programming and finally drawing the curtain on his career as the Horseman of Death. Marvelous verdict. Wolverine has always been portrayed as a rough and tumble guy, but in this story arc, his sacrificial side shows up. Just how far Wolverine is willing to go to save the world, even if it means losing himself, is truly a sight to behold. Not only that, as his friends do their best to save him, we understand just how loved Wolverine is. This is something that our boy Logan has wanted for so long, and finally he has a place to call home. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!